Welcome to Terry's Toon Saloon. Howdy, web crawlers. If you're here, you must love toons as much as I do. It's easier than ever to find whatever you're looking for on the information superhighway. You can put just about anything into InfoSeek or Ask Jeeves and get a full page of results. Unless that is, you're looking for the animated works of the mysterious Lawrence Pepper, an animator I'd never heard of myself until recently. It's difficult to even scrounge up evidence the man existed at all, let alone his work. But my favorite dollar theater has begun to showcase his films this week, and I plan to give every cartoon a review. I've even got the help of my friend, independent animation historian Cecil, to fill in some of the blanks.
Wanna be a member? Wanna be a member?
No!
Now I'm sure you're all familiar with the works of the legendary Max Fleischer, especially if you've been reading Toon Saloon since it opened its e-doors in '93. A lot of folks wanted a piece of the same pie as good old Max, and bless their hearts, he outlasted pretty much all of them. Even back then, life as a theatrical cartoonist was no cakewalk. Hey, weren't we talking about pie? And some of his fiercest competitors and wannabes crashed so hard their toons are all but impossible to find. In some cases, may be lost for real. This is very nearly the case for Mr. Pepper. Cecil says it's a miracle anybody found his reels at all, and we've both tried to get in touch with whoever brought them to Nick's Nickel Cinema, but even Nick himself wasn't sure. He said he's going to find out more for us. All Cecil knows from a few papers he's dug up, and don't ask me how he's done it, is that there were 6 cartoons that played in just a handful of theaters from 1929 to 1934, all credited to Lawrence Pepper. The first was just screened yesterday for us animation maniacs. Don't you call us animaniacs. No comment on those brats. And as usual, only a couple of us showed up. Nick pretty much only stays in business for the... you know what kind of movies. Not for me. None of us have a camera that can take a good picture of a movie, but there isn't much to really show you of the first cartoon, Forest Foibles. It's actually pretty ordinary. A bunch of animals turn things like logs, flowers, and mushrooms into musical instruments. Honestly, underwhelming if you ask me. But I am an animation reviewer, and I am nonetheless pretty interested to see more by a forgotten cartoonist. So today they screened the second cartoon, and it was actually also called Forest Foibles. From what we've pieced together, it seems like the first one was only played one time, and people hated it, including apparently Pepper's very own boss. Ruh-roh, Raggy! Pepper got sent straight back to the old drawing board. Heard that one before. And came out with a total rehash. And wow! Forest Foibles 2.0 was actually gorgeous for its time. Maybe even exceeding, don't hurt me, Fleischer himself. Forgive me, Lord! Lots of clever animation tricks, and even some of the twisted humor the period was best for. There's a scene in which a horse kicks a greedy pig right into an open grave, but the pig's ghost rises from the ground and just keeps eating. This cartoon also introduced a very unusual new character. Most of the others are kind of typical. There's a dog whose name we never really learn, and he seems like the main character. Then there's the pig, a rabbit, and some others. But the most memorable moments definitely come from a tree. The tree seemed to be almost a bad guy of sorts, since the animals shivered and chattered their teeth when he arrived, and he seemed to love playing little tricks on them or just plain spooking them. The short ends with a bunny couple sneaking off behind a seemingly normal tree, only for it to become the tree guy and scare them off, followed by a whole daisy chain of new baby bunnies. Sick stuff, Pepper. But that's why we love these old tunes. And guess what? We have pictures of this one. You know it isn't easy to get picture grabs of tunes, but once we had the title and the date, Cecil was able to rustle up a few photographs from a digital archive he uncovered here. Good luck if you're hoping to find anything in all that. You just ain't Cecil. Wow, I told you this cartoon looked good, didn't I? Notice the sign. Clyde Wood. I think that might be the tree's name. Yeah. Nice to meet you, Clyde. You don't fool me. It was only me and Cecil in the theater today, and maybe a guy who just wanted in from the cold for a little while. This one felt almost like another rehash of Forest Foibles at first, but people must have really liked Clyde, because now he was in almost every single scene. Sometimes he was just sort of dancing in the background, other times we got to see him up close. He would stretch himself out, squash himself down, tie himself in knots, even pull off a few moves I'm pretty sure were ripped straight from Disney's Skeleton Frolic. Weirdest of all was how Clyde could seemingly be any tree in the forest. An ordinary oak might suddenly become Clyde for a moment, then turn back into a regular painted background tree, only for a nearby sycamore to become Clyde, kind of like he was haunting any tree he wanted. As a matter of fact, the whole feel of this tune is a lot like the haunted house pieces that were so popular at the time. Thunder, lightning, shots of the full moon, you know the drill. This tune ended in a pretty ordinary happy dance scene, but for some reason it's the only scene in the whole picture without Clyde at all. I asked Cecil if he could find me more pictures. He said they're buried in so much gibberish that it's a lot of hard work. Remember to thank him, guys. Yipe, there he is. A certain someone said it best. Zoinks. Watch out, bub. So Clyde was a full-blown star by now, but Pepper must have been feeling a little pressure from Fleischer's increasingly popular Betty Boop, because this tune opens up on a total knockoff of Betty.
Everyone, how do you do?
We see her strolling through the woods as the film opens, showing off her garter belts every step of the way. She walks by different animals who whistle or faint or melt into blushing puddles as she passes by, but soon she enters an empty grove of the forest with only a single tree at the center, and I think we know what that means. When the unnamed girlie sits down under that tree, every other animal gasps and runs, leaving her all alone. The tree fades from a painting to a drawing with Clyde's trademark grin, and he winks at the audience. Then, without warning, he scoops the gal up in a claw-like branch and drops her right down his throat. He licks his lips and rubs his stomach, plucks one of his own twigs to pick his teeth, and does this horribly recorded laugh like a clown. Overall, the short is no freakier than some others I've reviewed from the era, but I wasn't expecting Clyde to make such a jump to full-blown evil. I thought we'd get the other animals working together to save the poor woman and send Clyde packing, but we actually never see her again. In fact, the tune just follows Clyde around, eating more innocent characters one by one. He uses his various shape-changing tricks to catch them off guard, popping out from regular trees and swallowing everybody up. Like I said, it's not much grislier than other period tunes. Just look at this picture from Disney's The Mad Doctor that almost made me want to hurl the first time. But the funny thing is that the music in Clyde's carol stays upbeat. In fact, from the musical score, you'd think we're just supposed to find all these gruesome scenes funny. I hate to be that person, but just what was Pepper smoking? You know the kind I mean. Cecil didn't join me today. He said he didn't feel good, but he would still find me some pictures. But I hope you're sitting down. I thought I'd seen some pretty sick stuff out of Fleischer, even out of Walt Disney from time to time. But there's nothing fancy about Fall Fancies, which is 7 straight minutes of pure sadism, all from the dangable trees perspective again. There's a scene that goes on much too long, where the dog character is drowning in a river, and Clyde keeps reaching out a branch to rescue him, but the branch breaks off, and the dog falls back in the water, over and over and over, to music that's still cheerful for some reason. All Clyde does is laugh. Later on, we see the bunny couple from the second cartoon, but they're running around in circles in a panic, while Clyde looms over them and juggles their babies in his branches. I don't know what happens to them since the film cuts right to the next scene. Was something removed? Clyde comes up with some pretty clever ways to gobble up more animals, too. There's a scene where a bird perches on a branch, and his mouth shifts to where it can slurp the whole branch up like a spaghetti noodle. There's another scene where he wraps around a lady like a snake until she disappears in his coils. When he unravels, she's just gone. In another scene, he opens up like an Iron Maiden to catch a police officer. Every time Clyde eats anybody in this toon, he turns back into a regular tree, except it has that person's face. Then he reappears from some other tree and continues on his rampage. As the toon goes on, more and more of the background trees have faces on them, and they ain't a pretty sight. By far the sickest moment comes at the end. A circle of saplings rise up from the ground to trap some dopey chipmunk character who beats at them like prison bars as they grow larger. They twist around until he's totally obscured, and they meld into one giant tree, and we can still hear him crying, until the tree forms his face, and the crying turns to a stupid, brainless chuckling. Clyde pops up at this point, winks to the audience, and says his first ever line of dialogue. It's an obvious ripoff of comedian Jimmy the Schnozzala Durante's famous line, but mashed up with gotcha. After this, Clyde opens his mouth and eats the camera, and that's the end. I have to be honest, this toon was actually kind of unpleasant. When I reviewed Disney's Pluto shorts last month, I talked about how Pluto's suffering in some of them felt really cruel, and his realistic yelps and screams always really got to me as a child. Well, triple that, and you have this short. I'll never get the sound of that drowning dog guy out of my head. I wasn't alone either, because that last picture Cecil found actually comes with the following factoid. Clyde's carol played only once to a booing and hissing audience. Flooded with complaints, Lawrence asked that the film not be played again. His turnaround had previously been only 1 year between cartoons, but his next would take nearly 2 years to debut. Hoo boy! So far, all I know is that Pepper's career did not last a whole lot longer than this, and that isn't saying good things for tomorrow's toon. Oh. I almost don't know what to say. I haven't been able to get hold of Cecil since he said he was sick. Without even giving him the name of this toon, I found more of his findings in my email box. This cartoon opened up on Clyde, twisting around and dancing in front of the full moon. I noticed the distinct face in the moon is one I've seen in every previous cartoon, and I believe it is a self-portrait of Lawrence himself. This time, Clyde was actually singing along to a song I don't recognize. In fact, the audio is so degraded, I couldn't really make out a single word. It was no wonder this one took Lawrence 2 years, I have to admit, because the animation is unbelievable. He has his beloved wooden devil twisting and warping and tangling and writhing from one form to another like you can't imagine without seeing it. If only any digital video existed and I had that kind of web speed to show you one. There's a bit where Clyde is even a bunch of trees at once, walking around in the trunks like a big weird spider or an octopus. Hard to describe, but we have a picture of it. It's obviously all a beautiful sequence, and you might think Pepper listened to his critics and toned down the violence and mayhem to just make something cool, fun, and only a little freaky. No dice. It isn't that the man learned nothing. No, I think he heard the critics loud and clear, but it only sent him on some kind of warpath. A while into his dancing, Clyde happens upon a little boy, seemingly lost in the wood, and for a second Clyde looks angry, but then a big, wicked smile curls on his face, like the Grinch would do years later, and his reign of terror truly begins. With another GOT-CHA-CHA-CHAAA, he picks up the screaming, sobbing kid by the neck, flips him into the air, catches him in his mouth, and chews him with a grinding, crunching sound before spitting into a spittoon. Next, Clyde takes his aggression, or is it Lawrence Pepper's aggression, out on some tramps who are trying to warm themselves around a campfire. He forms from their burning firewood and, well, turns the tables on that situation. I know later cartoons would routinely show characters burning up into ash. How many times did it happen to poor Wile or Tom? But I didn't typically see that gag in cartoons this old, and it wasn't even done in a comedic way. No blinking grumpy eyes in these ash piles, just ash piles. I'm glad we don't have more pictures from this toon. He tears through a series of victims that range from obvious political figures, I think I spotted FDR in there, to every awful stereotype under the sun. He even goes after a blind man and his guide dog, downs a bunch of squealing infants, and has an undeniable bias towards tormenting young pretty women, targeting them more often than anybody else, drawing it out longer, letting them squirm and shriek longer. That stupid music still plays, like it's all just jolly fun and games. I know I excused some pretty regrettable things as products of their time and some of my past reviews, and some people weren't happy, and I really get it now. This was just, well, ugly. Once again, the final scene is the worst, as the footage finally breaks away from Clyde and centers on a happy human family. Two kids frolic with a fat, clumsy puppy as their parents nuzzle one another on a park bench. The music dies down to chirping birds and serene harps, but soon enough, a tall shadow is cast over the couple, and the whole family screams as a tree branch, like a skeleton's hand, closes over only the mother. She is taken off screen, and the rest of her family wails. It's incredibly loud, but still drowned out by the sound of something tearing, like they recorded a fat book being ripped in half, and the cartoon faded to black with triumphant ending music. I went home downright rattled, even queasy. I know that sounds stupid, but there are subtleties to the details I honest to God can't do justice with words. You can never get it if you didn't see how vicious and lewd and just completely foul this cartoon was. Maybe you can find fouler now on Fox or MTV, but at least Beavis and Butthead are someone's idea of a joke, no matter how disgusting they are. This felt just disgusting. Like Pepper didn't mean it to be funny, but wanted to just leave people feeling awful about it. Which he certainly did. The guy either wanted desperately to destroy his own career, or he was truly just that spiteful, lascivious, and vengeful. A man who had a real bone to pick with virtually everyone and would burn every bridge it took to express it. I thought I could handle almost anything the industry could throw at me, but never in all my years have I seen such a smugly hate-filled piece of animation, let alone from what felt like such a safe and simpler time to look back on. Nick's is closed today. Doesn't say why. Cecil is still a no-show and hasn't said anything to me. He hasn't even answered his phone or his door, but he still sent me more files, sans any commentary of his own. I was pretty sure that last one was Pepper's final cartoon, but this scan was in my email today. Gleeful Gambol was met with even harsher reception than Clyde's Carol, and Lawrence Pepper was said to have been fired from his own studio. Regardless, a 7th cartoon appeared suddenly the following year, and the regrettable aftermath would spell the end of what was believed to have been Lawrence Pepper. I have no idea what sort of paper or magazine this was taken from. I don't know what in the name of God it's trying to say. These are weird and confusing choices of words, and I really don't like where any of it takes my mind to. A cartoon can't possibly be that bad, can it? I mean, that's what I want to say, but I haven't felt good since seeing Gambol. I know it's just a piece of animation, but I just can't stop feeling really down now. A lot worse after sleeping on it. This cartoon may be old, and it may look silly on the surface, but it really made me think about hate, and cruelty, and anger, and how someone could ever be so full of bile that he'd waste his beautiful talent and trash his whole legacy just to make sure everybody saw his ugliest side. If there's really one more cartoon and Nix is going to screen it, then I don't know if I can go the rest of my life never knowing what Pepper's final piece was like, but I don't know if it would really be good for me. I tried to cheer myself up today. I put on some of my all-time favorites. The real Betty Boop. The Chuck Jones and Dr. Seuss team-ups. Duck Dodgers. But they kinda didn't feel fun anymore. Maybe it's just a lingering, glass-half-empty outlook I'll come out of. I hope so. But right now, it's like these toons all look dreary and petty and mean to me. Like putting on a new pair of glasses and now you can see all your boyfriend's zits. My favorites just aren't making me laugh right now. They're just making me feel lonely and weird. Like I'm too aware I'm watching the labor of people who are mostly old or gone. What felt naive about old media feels ignorant to me now. Which is just a little difference maybe. But it's not a fun one. Maybe you folks were right that I need to give some newer stuff a chance. When I feel better. I made my decision. I'm really not seeing the last short. I have another email from Cecil and it just says, title card. And I'm not opening it. I'm sorry, Cece. You can stop doing this for me. I really need a break from just obsessing over cartoons at 50. I know you must be reading this if you're still trying to send me material, but I really just want to talk to you for real. Actually, I really miss you, and the way you and I were before. Can you please just stop by or call me, or at least shoot me another email about something that's not cartoons? Cecil, did you mean to fill my whole entire 4 megabyte inbox with the same file? You want me to put it up that bad? Is this stuff really all you care about? I know it's still playing at Nick's, but I still don't feel good. Not just sad, it's gotta be a bug or something. Are you still sick too? Talk to me. I don't like this picture. I don't want to know more. Cartoons!
have you ever met the Bogeyman before? No, of course you haven't, for you're much too good, I'm sure. Don't you be afraid of him if he should visit you. He's a great big coward, so I'll tell you what to do. Hush, 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 here comes the Bogeyman. Don't let him come too close to you, he'll catch you if he can. Just pretend that you're a crocodile, and you will find that Bogeyman will run away a mile.
GOT-CHA-CHA-CHA.